everybody. Welcome to GT Live. I'm your host, Brandon Jones. Today, the game we are playing that you can see behind me is Hyperlight Drifter, which is not even out yet, so we were very fortunate to be checking it out today. Playing on the couch is Mr. Brad Ellis. Next to him is Mr. Alex Preston, who made this darn game, and Brad Ellis is playing it for the first time, so Alex is going to give him some pointers. What better way to play a game for the first time than with the lad who created it sitting next to you? We are doubling down on guests today, and we're doubling down on giveaways. We're actually giving away games, codes for two different games. Mr. Ben Moore is going to be in chat, and he's going to be giving away 2 cherished codes for a game that he reviewed himself, Pillars of Eternity. And Mr. Daniel Bloodworth is going to be in chat, giving codes to everybody for Tower of Guns. So if you want to ask some excellent questions, we'll be answering them at the end of the show. You can possibly win 2 codes for Pillars of Eternity. And if you just jump into chat and chat it up, then you will possibly get a code for Tower of Guns. Today, our guests, including Mr. Alex Preston sitting on the couch, are Mr. Teddy Diefenbach and Mr. Brendan Chung. Brendan working on Quadrilateral Cowboy, which we will be also checking out on the stream today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Welcome to GT Live.
It's Brendan's pleasure to be here.
I'm happy to have a Brendan on. We spell our name slightly differently. It ends in the O-N.
It does.
But it's as close to Brandon as I've gotten on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How is development of your game going?
It's going pretty well. We're just like moving forward on Hyperlight. We're trying to just make a video game that's real big. Turns out like a Zelda-like game is Zelda's a big game, yo.
Just Zelda in general? All of the games are big?
Yeah. Just we're trying to make all the Zelda games in one game and mash them in. So it's going great. Yeah.
So was that the inspiration? Was it the first creative meeting? You guys just talked about Zelda primarily?
Well, when Alex started, I think like some of the big things he credited were like Link to the Past and Diablo and some other things. I think those were like the 2 in like the pitch.
Pac-Man.
And Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And not that one.
Galaga?
You're ruining this.
I know.
Start over. Where's the camera?
So would you say you guys possibly underestimated how big a Zelda-esque game was?
I don't know if we underestimated. I think that we knew like, okay, this is going to be big, and we are going to reserve judgment on what that means exactly. But we have learned, we filled in the blank. Like we didn't have an answer. We had a blank, and we're like, let's be careful. Let's fill in that blank and make sure that we do it responsibly. And now that we filled it in, we're like, yeah, dude, it's big.
So Kickstarters that blow way past their goals are super in right now. So we had Mr. Koji Igarashi, who is like, has like, 3-4 weeks left in his Kickstarter campaign and is now to like 1.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys blew way past your goal. Was that scary at all? I mean, how did you feel once you saw it was not only, you had met your goal, but you were going to go way past it?
Horrifying.
Terrifying?
No, it was great. It was super exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I joined the team on like a few days in as a reach goal. They call me the reach goal because I reached like goals. Yeah, so it was exciting for me because it meant that the game got bigger and we got to put this team together. So that was an Unbreakable reference, by the way. It was cool. We all like met at Alex's house together and like talked about it and made plans. So like. Mostly Alex was running the Kickstarter and I was helping him just answer messages as frantically as we could about like, is there going to be a 3DS version, which is like 90% of the questions you get.
Wow.
And yeah,
Good
people.
questions about that.
Yeah.
Like not
there's
like
going to be a 3DS version.
Mm.
That thing doesn't run things very well.
it would seem to me to be a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
That would seem to be a really clear choice that you would make in development whether you're going to put a game on a 3DS.
Oh, okay, wait. So I'm super excited because I feel like this is a sports set, so I'm going to just keep doing that.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the Kickstarter you mentioned with Bloodstained, right?
Yeah.
And the one that's going right now? Because we can talk about this like we're all veterans, right? And be like, what he's got to be thinking right now, Brandon, is he's going to be thinking about his forward trajectory and his momentum. I don't know, man. Momentum's important.
For development or for video games or for sports or all three?
For sport Kickstarters. No, I mean, that was the thing. That was the reason that Hyperlight did well. Like Hyperlight, if you look at the stats, because you can look at Kickstarter stats if you're a super nerd, it was kind of linear. Like usually those things tail off. They just kind of like go up for a couple days and then they flatten and then they go up at the end. And for some reason, because of like the hype and Alex's art, it just kept going like this.
For some reason, you're modest. I mean, this is a gorgeous looking game.
I agree. I mean, I do like the code and I do game designy things. So when people are like, "This game's beautiful," I'm like, "Fuck yeah, it's beautiful." I'm like, I totally agree. I'm a nerd fan of Alex's art too.
So, Brendan, how is Quadrilateral Cowboy coming along?
It's going on really well. It's like in its 3rd year development right now. and I'm shooting for like this year. So I'm happy that it's this year.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So did you know it was going to be 3 years? Did you kind of have that ballpark, or were you just like, hey, when it's done?
No, everything I've done has been like 6 months or so, or maybe like a year or so. So I thought, maybe this will be a long project, maybe like a year long. Turns out it's like 3 times that. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the thing, is that when you're working as a very small team, you can kind of do whatever you want, and sometimes whatever you want ends up being 3 years long. So yeah.
So were those things you made? Did you have an initial idea, and then that initial idea took 3 years, or were you kind of building on the idea as you went through development?
Yeah, I mean, so my previous games, like 30 Flights of Loving, are very like narrative focused, and for this one, I thought, I'll switch gears. I'll make it like extremely systems heavy and just like all about mechanics, and so that approach kind of lends itself to kind of like growing more and more and more and more exponentially. Like you put this mechanic on top of this mechanic, see what happens, and that kind of leads to something else, and then leads to something else, and so all that kind of like led to what it is right now, which is kind of like this fairly large game.
So people are checking out the game right now. We're rolling some B-roll. Lots of coding in this game. Did you want to introduce people to coding that maybe were not familiar with the practice that play video games, that are fans of PC games, or did you want to attract people maybe that were into game development? What was the impetus behind putting that in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a self-taught programmer, and like for me, when I learned how to do it, there was something kind of, I don't really like this word, but there's something magical about it. Like there's something about like unlocking this whole new world of like being able to make whatever you want. I started from level design, and then once I learned programming, it's like, oh wow, this goes so much more beyond level design, and I can do whatever I want now. I mean, I'm sure you have the same thing, where it's like once you learn programming, kind of like, I could do whatever game I want to do, and there was something kind of crazy about that.
It's funny because some would argue it's the exact opposite of magic, because it's like there's no special sauce to this. It's right there. There were no jumps in logic here. I mean, it's all laid out for you right there in ones and zeros.
Even Harry Potter had to go to school, man.
This is true. You've completely put me in my place, Teddy. So what is your involvement with Hyperlight? What are you doing working on the project?
I am one half.
What do you do? I don't know. What are you doing working on this game?
I'm sorry, I should go. I'm one half of the sort of programming and game design team, along with Bo Blythe, who made Samurai Gun. Bo does mostly our like combat and like gameplay action stuff. So he's really good at game feel. He does enemy AI and stuff like that. He's always working on bosses and things like that. And I do more like system-y big stuff, like, I made our music system, or I do like our upgrade systems and the limit break system we have and stuff like that, like more RPG-ish stuff. And then we combine those, and it's action and RPG.
So what are you focusing on now at this stage in development? Has your role changed, or have you been pretty much working on the same thing throughout?
It has started to change, yeah. Like I've been doing a lot of stuff that was really urgent that blocks things like level design. So like a lot of game development is all about making sure that no one is blocking someone else as often as possible. Like, okay, who needs to be working? Why can't you work? Let me help you. Bottlenecks. Now we squeezed through the bottlenecks, and now I get to do some of like the bigger stuff that we ignore and lean away from, just that like you don't need right away, like fast travel and saving and like NPC stuff and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I've kind of shifted gears into like the high level big picture stuff, world map and things like that.
How many people are on your team?
One.
Excellent.
Yes. So I have I have contractors doing the porting work to Mac and Linux. And I was working as a level designer for about 6 months, but at the moment it's just me.
How is that supervising someone that is taking your baby and porting it over to other systems? Is that nerve-wracking at all, or is that a fun experience?
It's nice because I don't know anything about porting, so it's nice to have a specialist who just does that and is really good at it, and I can just like sleep peacefully at night knowing that it's in very safe hands. Yeah.
So you just, taking this whole game by the reins and doing most of the work yourself. Has your role, I imagine, changed drastically month by month, year by year, working on the project? So the stuff you're working on now, is that drastically different than the stuff you were doing a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of nice is that when you're as a small team, you do everything. You wear all the hats. So, I mean, I'm not really the best programmer. I'm not the best artist. I'm not the best designer. But every day you get to, like, try doing it and seeing what happens. And And just every day you're just learning something new, and I love that. It's the best part of being small and independent.
If somebody could wave a magic wand and give you 50 people on your team to work on something that you didn't have to pay, I mean, would you accept that help, or do you like doing everything yourself because you get to put your stamp on it?
Yeah. So I mean, I used to work in AAA, and in my experience there is that the games that you got to work on there are really big and really cool, and like they do stuff that I'll never be able to do. But the flip side of that is that when you're part of a really big team, like the contribution you have on it can be very limited. I was a level designer, and like I made a couple levels, and it was cool, but like I wanted to make a game that was my own. And so for me, like being small and being able to like do whatever stupid idea that would never pass a committee meeting is great, and I love it.
What do you think was the biggest lesson working in a big, dumb company and then going over to work on your own projects that you took from that?
I mean, it wasn't a dumb company. It was very educational. It was very wonderful. I met
Brendan
lots of
Chung
good
calls
friends.
AAA dumb.
No, it was wonderful. I mean, for me, the biggest thing was like to not, like you guys were talking about, just don't let bottlenecks happen. Like for me, my art style is very simplified. It's very streamlined. Part of that is because I like the minimal look, but a large reason is because it's easy to make.
Yeah, that was actually going to ask you that. We're going to get to once we roll our trailer for the show and we hit our midway point. We're going to switch over to so you guys can check out the latest demo of Quadrilateral Cowboy. But I was actually curious if that was much easier to develop for that style, that people don't need necessarily the most awesome PC ever created to make the game operate. What is the impetus behind the style?
Yeah, I mean, when you're making a game, when you have like limited resources like we do, you only have so much energy in a day, you only have so much hours in a day. And if you try to make everything the best and super amazing, you might never ship. So I mean, in this case, the art is kind of like, I have very low poly stuff that I can make in like half an hour. And that's why I'm hopefully able to ship games.
And from what I've seen, I have yet to play this game. It seems like the functionality of the game is really the draw. It's kind of like the stuff that you can enable, the stuff that you can make happen. And so the game only really needs to look so good, for you to understand those systems and for you to be able to explore the environment and understand where things are.
Right, totally. Like a big inspiration for me is Team Fortress 2, which is like, it has really beautiful art. And I don't want to like take anything away from them, but their art is made to be extremely like instantly readable, and like a lot of their walls are kind of like these big flat shaded panels, and that's great because like when a guy stands in front of it, he instantly reads as a guy, as opposed to getting like muddled down textures and things like that. I'm
a giant Disney Infinity nut, and Game Informer's doing a big spread this month on Infinity 3.0, and they actually, one of the artists was showing the figures and had one of the characters off in the corner, and Game Informer guy's like, wait, whoa, he's like, Team Fortress, is that a thing? And they were like, Team Fortress is God. They're like, that, like this style is everything, because you look at one of those characters and you think like, I know that guy, I totally understand his personality, it's recognizable, the art style is really clear, and you, like just like you said, you get that right off the bat.
It's all about shapes and silhouettes.
Yeah.
Lots of shapes, lots of silhouettes in both of your games. I'm enjoying the shapes and silhouettes that I'm seeing so far in Hyperlight Drifter. Mr. Brad Ellis, what do you think of this game so far?
I really liked it.
What do you like about it?
It's challenging, which I like. I feel like I have really good control of my character. It feels very Souls-like to me in that sense. I like having really good control of your character is super important to me, and I feel like every mistake I've made has been my fault. Nothing I could blame on the game as people like to do.
What's a classic mistake that you've made so far?
I walked off an edge.
There you go.
That happens.
But then you knew, like, that's
Yeah,
what an
I was
edge
like,
looks
okay.
like. I won't do that again.
And the
that
game
looks like an edge right there.
Yeah, the game doesn't tell you how to play and what to do necessarily, which I really like. No mini-map either, which is nice.
The beginning of this demo, is that the beginning of the game? So when the game ships, is that the way the game's going to begin?
No,
Okay.
we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to like throw in a particular spoiler for the game. So this was sort of a self-contained dungeon type thing for the
It's
demo.
a thing that won't really exist in the same format in the final game.
And that's something that I'm curious about. Obviously it's something that I don't think, from my experience in talking with developers, something developers don't look forward to is the necessity of taking a chunk of your game, slicing it out, and then handing that off to journalists and people to check out. Was that frustrating? Was it difficult to come up with exactly what part of the game you wanted to have be the demo?
A lot of our development has been defined by the sort of punctuation points of there's E3 coming up, we need a build for it, or we showed it at Minecon like right after our Kickstarter, so that was our first little mini thing we did. Or we have a big Preston coming up at GDC. That's both really good because it gives us a milestone. Sometimes you can start to wander, like especially when your project is big and it's multiple years. That you have one deadline, which is like we have to finish the game. So it's nice to have very like accountable deadlines. We have to be there. We're going to be on stage. People are going to see something. It's also tough because, like you're saying, it's a diversion sort of. Like you have to, whatever your priorities are for the end goal, you have to kind of shift them towards, well, we need to polish this thing earlier than we would because it has to look done. Like, right? It has to look done. It can't crash. It has to be easy to play. If we're going to give it to people, that's a huge step, is like actually making sure that someone's not going to make your game look dumb because you didn't do a good job of helping them play.
And you can't sit over their shoulder and explain it either and be like, oh, don't worry, that'll be fixed later.
Right. Although you can lean over Brad's shoulder and tell him he's doing everything wrong.
Oh yeah.
Brad, you're doing all right.
Yeah, what do you think of his performance so far, Alex?
He's doing all right. He's died very few times, so good on you.
From what I've seen, the little I've seen of the demo that you brought today, that looked like the beginning of the game for Quadrilateral Cowboy.
Yeah.
And it seems like, this is Hyperlight. It looks like there's a lot of elements to it. You pick up more weapons and stuff like that. You get more powerful, I'm assuming, as you go through the game. But it is a isometric top-down action, adventure game. So it seems like something that, most gamers who grew up with Zelda franchise, who are familiar with games like this, can kind of pick up and play and then learn the nuances of it. Where it seems like Quadrilateral Cowboy, if you were to jump in the game halfway through, might be tricky because maybe you need the intro of the game to kind of teach people the systems moving in.
Right. So I shows and stuff, I usually just bring the first 2 levels of the game. The game is made for people who don't have any programming knowledge. So, generally what happens at shows is that like someone will come to the booth and I'll say like, oh yeah, hi, this is Quadrilateral Cowboy. If you'd like to play, let me know. And the game is about like cyberpunk and hacking. And then you can kind of see them just like eyes glaze over and like they start walking away slowly. And then I kind of have to wrangle them in and, trust me, just play it and it'll be fun. And they stay and play it and they have fun. But what's cool, the best part is that, like, at these shows, inevitably, you'll get, like, a 9-year-old kid. And 9-year-old kids don't have that baggage of, like, thinking programming is hard or impossible or need to go to, like, college for it. And so they'll just sit down and they'll start playing and they'll totally nail it. And it's like, people. This is doable. Programming is not this like weird beast that's impossible to do.
So you mentioned your game's coming out this year. When did you know it was? Like, when did you reach that phase that you knew? And I know that's kind of difficult to explain because then you'd have to almost like explain the entire development process. But was that kind of like a light bulb went off where you were just like, okay, we're done. I definitely know it's coming out this year.
Right. So my process is the worst process ever, and no one should ever do it, which is I make something, and then I'll make something else, and then I'll make it up as I go along, basically. So I don't really have like a roadmap or a plan or like how this thing is going to finally look like. At some point, it just starts clicking. At some point, you just make enough things, and then there's just enough things that fill up the game, and it feels like, oh, okay, I feel I can ship this now.
That's what I love about watching you develop the game. So we actually all work in the same studio. There's a cooperative space called Glitch City that we all run and work out of in LA, and it's a bunch of people working on a bunch of different games. So I get to see Brendan's work every Friday at Show and Tell. And like sometimes I'll be doing something cool or something small and little that I can like post. Like I made Flowers move yesterday and it was like kind of cute. But sometimes I'll be working on something that's really big. Like we'll be working towards a milestone and I'll be polishing the saving system and doing this meaty stuff. And Brendan's show and tells are always, like he said, he made a thing. He's like, this week I made a soap dispenser and like you can push it and soap squirts out and you can squirt it on things. And it has a label. Like everything is like that, like in Brendan's development, and it's so. I like it. I like watching it.
My favorite was the functional bathroom with like the actual toilet that works, and then the bike that you could throw through the space window.
Video game bathrooms are very important.
The bike that you could throw through the space window.
Yeah, that's the name of my new book.
Excellent. I want that on my tombstone. But that's actually a good point to bring up that, we've sometimes we have people on the show that know each other. Sometimes we bring in, random people to sit on the couch or on these chairs that meet each other for the first time. You guys have worked together in a bizarre way. Ian Hink is the glue that brings you together as far as your association with game trailers. Do you think that's important to have really close relationships with other developers so you get to kind of experience their development process and learn from them and kind of share your knowledge with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's vital to us, especially on a small team, whether you're like 1 people or we're full-time sort of 5 people. And even that is like, I need to get perspective. We need to get people to play this without having to do a big play test or do a demo. So just having people around to talk through problems. We also do a thing called Project Workshop, which is sort of like group therapy. We all sit down and everyone has like 10 minutes to talk about some problem they have. And sometimes it's like, oh, I can't figure out this mechanic and I'm trying to work it out. And sometimes it's like, do I need business cards? What are business cards for? Like, I hate business cards. So yeah, it's like really important. And the reason we started Glitch in the first place was so that we wouldn't go crazy, because most of us were working from home all the time.
Yeah, I mean, what's cool is that like you're all in the same room together, and just so I sit in my little space all day, and like the Hyperlight guys have their meetings, and it's fascinating to hear them like pour over all these details of the world, and like they care so much that everything has to like make sense and has history and like fits with the mythos and everything. It's like, oh my god, this is so, and like I'm just absorbing all of it, and it's just like it's wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Whereas from your perspective, you're like, what was it?
I said I'm sorry, Brendan.
Whereas you're like, makes sense. Why would you limit yourself that way? Has something making sense ever stopped you from putting something into your game?
Oh, I do a different approach where I don't really care what makes sense. Like I trust that everything will just kind of magically, organically shift around in such a way that it'll work out.
I call that the Ian Hink method. Speaking of Ian Hink, we're going to the control room. There he is, Ian Hink, ladies and gentlemen.
How's it going? Where's my lower?
You like these games. You've played these games.
I love these games.
Do we have a release date for Hyperlight Drifter? Do we know?
We don't.
Okay.
Shortly.
Yeah. When it's done.
There you go.
That's kind of the attitude.
What we say, because we've tried to be really public to backers, is that we have an eye towards our release date, so we're not just wandering. We haven't announced it yet, because when we do, we want to be 100%. We want to be behind it and give everybody enough time to get excited. But we know what's up, so we're just not telling you.
Yeah.
So Ian, you generally like these quirky games.
Yeah, you could
Is
say
quirky a
that.
good word? Is that a bad word? When I use the word quirky, you're like,
Quirky's
No.
like the nerdy girl at school, the hot nerdy girl that nobody's dating yet because they don't know she's hot.
The
they
quality.
haven't seen her without her glasses on.
Yeah. As soon as she takes the glasses off, then everybody's like, "Oh yeah, she's the most popular girl ever now."
Like, and
That's
she's
Hyperlight
all
yeah,
that.
that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite type of girl in school, Ian?
I don't discriminate.
You're accepting the love. Whoever
People-
wants to love Ian, just
You
let him
can
know.
find anything to like about just about anybody. You know?
Oh.
That's very positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they're both quirky. Brendan,
I'm surprised,
Quadrilateral
too.
Cowboy is more quirky than Hyperlight Drifter, for sure.
And you're fine with that
Oh,
distinction?
yeah.
If you could describe your games in one word, what would it be, Teddy?
Can I describe Brendan's game also?
Sure, yeah. Describe each other's
Okay.
games, actually. That works.
A word that Brendan uses all the time when he talks about design is gag. He goes, here's the gag. And then he tells you what the thing is that he made. So, gags.
Yes.
What would be your one-word description of Hyperlight Drifter, Brendan?
It feels like the first 500 pages of a 2,000-page book.
It's not one word.
That's a long word. One word I would use to describe Michael Huber would be, of course, hype. So we have a segment on our show called Number 11 where we talk about the poor game that did not make our top 10 countdown for the week. Mike Huber, I believe you won the award for the most appearances on this segment so far on GT Live.
Nice. I'm always fighting to the death.
Which I don't know what
for
that
the
means.
countdown.
Does that mean you get angry more than anybody else in the office? Does that mean that you are interested in things in games that aren't necessarily the most popular? What do you think that means? That you're always here defending that one?
I think
entry
everyone
that
just
didn't
likes
make it?
ganging up on me. They say,
that-
you want that? It's not going on the list. That's
So-
what it is.
So our top 10 for this week is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's one that I was trying to get pushed forward because I was curious to see what everybody thought about it. Top 10 robots.
Good.
You guys are kind of building robots. You seem to be, Brendan, someone who likes robots.
I love robots.
After the little I've seen of your game so far. And number 11 this week for top 10 robots, Metal Sonic.
Metal Sonic.
Um,
Didn't make the cut.
Didn't make the cut. Sonic has usually made appearances on countdowns we have that are about games that are not so good, about franchises that are in not in a good shape right now. But we like robots.
Yeah.
And these are 10 robots that we adore. Metal Sonic seems kind of like a jerk.
He is. He's a ruthless killer, hell-bent on destroying Sonic, but for cool reasons, to prove that he is the better Sonic. There's this really epic relationship of him trying to prove his worth, saying, I am the better version of you. I exist in this world to destroy you, but I'm also better than you. So.
But he clearly modeled himself after Sonic.
Well, no, so Robotnik made him. So he, like, outgrows his creator. So originally in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, there was Mecha Sonic, which is different. It was this really cool prototype. Like, Robotnik was, like, controlling him or whatever. And then later, Robotnik, obviously, you know, one-upping himself because he's mastermind. He's a genius. So he makes Metal Sonic. And I think I really started liking Metal Sonic in Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which is like the downloadable one for PlayStation. If you owned both episodes 1 and 2, you got a secret episode called Episode Metal. And it was like the story of Metal Sonic after the events of Sonic CD. So you see him like lose the race. Because in Sonic CD, he challenges Sonic to a race. Because he's like, if I'm going to beat you, I'm going to beat you at what you do best, speed. So it's like him crushing defeat, and then Robotnik puts him back together, and then Metal Sonic just goes power hungry, and he's like, I'm better than Sonic. It's all about vengeance.
So one of the tricky things about doing countdowns, we got to establish rules. You know, we can't just be like throwing entries around there. We got to say, okay, what are the rules? Yeah. So one thing that is like, what makes a good robot? Like when you say top 10 robots, is it like cool factor? So one of the things that I try to figure out is like, why do you build a robot? You build a robot to help you, you know, unless you're like maniacal and you want to like kill people, and none of us really want to kill people in real life.
I want my robot to overthrow me.
Right. So so for that reason, Metal Sonic might not be the most practical robot. GLaDOS also didn't make the list for the reason that like you don't really want to spend that much time with GLaDOS. Really fun to play in a video game, but if you're building a robot and it ends up like GLaDOS, you've done something wrong.
Do you guys think that if Metal Sonic didn't just have someone else's name with a qualifier, he wouldn't have such a chip on his shoulder? Or like if Sonic also had a qualifier, like Meatbag Sonic, like whether Metal Sonic would feel more comfortable in his shoes?
I think so. I think it's safe to say he's definitely got some kind of chip on his shoulder.
So that's like a good lesson, you know, if you're building a robot to attack your arch nemesis, you know, don't necessarily make that robot look exactly like that arch nemesis, because then they'll develop a whole complex about it.
Well, it was mind games too, because Sonic was like, oh, he looks like me, and I got to attack him, you know?
You might say he has a microchip on his shoulder.
End of show.
Yeah, exactly. We're done. Thank you very much for watching T2 Live. See you next week. So do you guys have any favorite robots that come to mind? Of course, we don't want to spoil the list. So if you say a name, I'm not going to say officially if it was on our list.
Oh, you haven't announced what is on the top 10.
It's this Friday. Yeah.
Usually
it's
I
our list for
spoil
this
it,
Friday.
but,
Huber spoiled it last week.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't spoil the entire list, but spoiled one of the entries. So
From
I'll
this
just
week.
nod and smile and be like, nice.
Okay.
I was just curious if any robots spring to mind.
Robo from Chrono Trigger, isn't that his name?
Okay, yeah.
He's got the Never Gonna Give You Up theme song, right? Where they just flat out stole. Yeah, that's like, what better robot could you get?
We'll see this Friday. What's a favorite robo?
See, for me, it's from MechWarrior. It is the Jenner robot. And the reason why I like the Jenner robot is because the classification of the Jenner robot is it is a chicken walker, and I think that's funny.
Nice. Cool.
ATST is also known from Star Wars, also known as chicken walkers.
They are.
And that was an important distinction. And actually, we like to peruse other people's countdowns whenever we pick a title just to make sure we're not missing anything. Saw lots of Metal Gears come up, and like that's not a robot, that's a mech, right?
Yeah, it's
that's
a
like
tool.
You're writing that, so that's not its own robot that does its own thing.
Except for the cow ones from 4 that had the
the
legs.
geckos, right? Yeah, that's a totally different thing. We considered that, did not make the countdown, unfortunately.
Spoilers.
Too much pooping from those. It's like we just want robots that don't poop.
It's got to be self-aware.
Also, no cyborgs.
No Terminator then, right?
Terminator would count, yeah. But that's the other important distinction for countdowns is we always try to do something that is game specific. So if it's something that was in another medium, and then like Ultron, he might show up in video games and stuff, but like couldn't put him on the list because wasn't created for video games. So I expect to see you back again, Mr. Huber.
Yeah, who knows what the countdown's gonna bring? Just Metal Sonic, man. It's so epic. It's like tragic. It's like Shakespearean.
So if you could
battling
have
himself.
if you could have your own Metal Sonic, even though it would be like racing you to work every day, it'd be like
Metal
destroying
Huber
things around.
trying to out-hype
Metal
me.
Huber.
There it is.
The next episode of Huber Hype, I want to see Metal Huber. Okay, not to be confused with Metal Mario. You think Metal Mario would be like Robot Mario, but it's not. It's Mario with metal on him.
Right, that's what I thought it was. I'm not familiar with the Sonic lore, so when you first said it, I was like, oh, is that basically Metal Mario, but Sonic?
And as Brendan has said, lore is very important to you guys.
Yeah, we dive deep on all things Sonic the Hedgehog for Hyperlight.
Right.
Yeah.
We had a Sonic party the other.
We did. We
months
threw a
ago.
Sonic the Hedgehog. We threw a Sonic is my boyfriend party for Valentine's Day.
Whoa.
We all made Sonic games. So there was like Sonic VR, and
You made games for a party?
Yeah.
That's a party,
Sonic
man.
VR.
It's pretty good. I still have to post that. I made the opening screen of Mario 64, but with Sonic instead of Mario, and without the constraints that make it look not horrifying if you stretch it wrong. So
So what do you do with these games? You're just like, I made a game. Okay, done.
I don't know. I should probably
Throw
put it on
that
the
in
internet. Yeah.
Recycle bin.
Well, it's usually like you make it in like 48 hours or 24 hours, and then you're
Like
really
you do.
tired and you're jittery, and then you have to go to a party and be like, I made this. So then you kind of like put it in a bucket, and you're like, I don't want to look at it for a while.
Did somebody win? Was there a grand prize for the best game? Did people vote on it?
No, it's everyone wins at Sonic is my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Well, everyone doesn't win in the GT countdown. Certainly Michael Huber doesn't win every time.
Just losses.
Gonna wind up for number 11. All right, we have reached the critical halfway point in the show. How are you doing? We got to cut you off. We got to queue up Quadrilateral Cowboy for the second half of GT Live. Have you reached a point that you feel you can stop, Mr. Brad Ellis?
Yeah.
Is it a tough game to put down?
Yes.
He's hooked.
He's ready.
Have you made any progression? I see you rocking some different weapons. Has your sword improved? If you pick up different items?
Not that I'm aware of yet.
He missed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh.
Hey,
And you weren't going to tell him while he was doing it? You weren't going to like give him a little nudge?
No,
and be like, just go ahead and
no,
get
I
that?
don't
No?
dare do that.
No hints.
That's not how that works?
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for letting him fly blind. And thank you, Brad, for picking up this game. When we come back from our badass trailer, we will check out Quadrilateral Cowboy and try to break that game. You know, just try to get into that code and just rip that game to pieces. Today's badass trailer, we got today for League of Legends for a new character that's coming to the game called Echo. Not spelled the way you would think, spelled E-K-K-O. League of Legends likes to throw out extremely random trailers, big CG masterpieces for their characters. A lot of them make absolutely no sense whatsoever. They like dare you to figure out what the heck is going on. And this trailer is very easy to figure out. It's a very cool action sequence, and I dig it a lot. It is badass. So check it out. Badass trailer for League of Legends.
People waste a lot of time. Then they wish for more. They want more hours in their days, more days in their years, more years in their lives. Because if they had all that extra time, they could fix any mistake. I don't need hours or days or years. I only need seconds. Here's the thing about time. If you can't make the most out of any given moment, then you don't deserve a single extra second.
Careful there.
Ian fumbled the ball. Ian,
Hey.
let's go to Ian. Ian.
I don't know. I
Ian,
don't know.
What happened there, man? Come
It's
on.
done that twice now tonight, where it like goes half fades into the next thing and then
Blame
doesn't.
it on the
go.
mechanical object that
No,
can't
that's-
defend itself.
Right.
I mean,
So
Hey.
you're demoing your game. You're at an event. It crashes. What do? You just blame the game.
You throw the computer out the window.
Okay.
I usually lean into it. I like shake the hand of the person who broke it and then like take a picture of the bug.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like you don't want to be embarrassed. It's like, yeah, of course it broke. I don't care.
Yeah, there's a lot of breakage situations that show floors. Crashes happen. You
Nobody
just
wants to see a man cry.
Yeah, just
at
play it
times.
off. It's like whatever, it happens. It's not a finished version. Bugs are gonna happen.
But I imagine that's kind of fun, if I go to an event. Like, I would actually cherish that. That would probably be one of my favorite moments if I, went to an event and played a game and crashed it. I'd be like, yes.
You want to make
I
them
did
feel
it.
like they won a prize.
Yeah.
Like, you're
And
the
I mean-
third person to crash that room.
Yeah,
Hooray!
Yeah, totally. We did that.
And I mean, in a strange way, as developers, you do kind of want that to happen. You do want, all of the bad things to go wrong now, so you can fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we end up fixing them live. Like I think it was PAX Prime, was it? Or the first PAX we went to, PAX East.
PAX East.
I was like live coding from our merch table, like fixing bugs. And it was like kind of cool. I like put it up on the screen for a while. I'm like, look, programming. I'm Brendan Chung. It's Quadrilateral Cowboy.
We're making your game.
But it's also super stressful. So
Speaking of Quadrilateral Cowboy, we are now checking this out. Brad Ellis is. I just want to do like game speed dating. I want to have the GT Live. We literally just throw like a new game at Brad every 10 minutes. So yeah. So definite change of pace. You're no stranger to first-person games, of course, Brad. Alex, you'd like to be hands off when he was playing Hyperlight Drifter, just kind of like, you figure it out. You miss all the items. I don't
You
care.
go ahead and die.
Brendan, are you going to whisper in his ear and tell him all the cool things to do, or are you going to maybe take the same approach and just kind of just let him wing it? So the time has come for our editorial segment in the show. We have a bunch of awesome independent developers here, so I just thought we would continue the discussion of independent development. What do you think of that crazy thing? Is that working out for you?
It's working out. I think we've done all right so far. Making games is hard.
Yeah.
And it's even harder when you're a small team because you have to do everything yourself. That you don't have the luxury of a producer maybe, or like somebody who can handle all the marketing, unless you hire somebody out and you have the budget for it. But smaller teams, you don't have the budget, so you got to do more things yourself. But that also means you have more freedom and more creative control over the final product, rather than a million chefs in the kitchen at once, which can become problematic. So I don't know. It has advantages and it has disadvantages. I would not do anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
So, would you like your team to stay at the same size, like forever? If you could just like into infinity make games with this group at this size,
I would
at this
love to
rate?
keep working with the guys that I'm working with, except for Teddy.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm firing him on the show. No, but just
Bill Trinan apparently got fired today, so yeah,
we were
it's a
we were
good time to
yelling
do
at
it.
each other for the whole riot trailer,
Yeah.
and then just like we're live.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
No,
Friends
it's-
again.
I like small teams. I don't know what the perfect size is for it, but it's like you get to know the people and there's a bond that you form with these people that you're working with every single day and having long conversations that you're getting deep into really silly shit sometimes about like that thing should bounce 3 times with 2 frames, and you have these long like hair-pulling arguments about things, but ultimately you hopefully get to a resolution that everybody agrees with, and it's a better design for
Yeah,
it.
it was
But
like a few weeks ago. I was like, what did I do today? I had a 2-hour argument about doors.
yeah,
Like that's indie development.
like how to open a fucking door in a game. It's you'd think it'd be the simplest thing, but it's not.
Well, nothing's simple, I would hope. I mean,
No, I mean everything's got a lot of decisions to make to it, man. But that's like what indie games are great about. Like what people like about indie games is that like you can see the voice in it. Like you can kind of see through the game to like somebody made that game, and I think you can kind of see that with some AAA games depending on what they are. But
Well,
like
I
I
think
know how each of us has put something into Hyperlight. You know?
Yeah.
I completely
think
agree with that.
The bigger games, though, sorry, the big,
No, yeah.
just on Teddy's,
Shut up,
like the few bigger games that you can still see like the creator's hand in, really like are Japanese games more than anything else because they have that main front man like Igarashi or Kojima, of course, but like they are the guys and they have the vision, and regardless, it's not designed by committee, which a lot of AAA games are nowadays, where you have a huge pool of people and producers like putting input into there. It's like, nope, I'm gonna do this and fuck everything else.
If you've ever played or get a chance to play 30 Flights of Loving, which is a previous game of Brendan's, like since like you said, he made everything. So every decision, every little decision,
Good or
he
bad.
had to, he had to make. and it's his voice, and there's a developer commentary. So like if you play that game, then you can play it with commentary, which is like notes everywhere about why he made all these little decisions. And like you can't get that with the bigger games. It's too hard to bring it all together.
So many of the bigger games, you feel like they're just checking boxes. You know, like you're going through the motions in a lot of them. Whereas, like you were saying earlier, you see someone's vision in an indie game, it feels like intimate. So many indie games I play, I feel a connection versus going through this big AAA.
Yeah, I have like all the love for AAA. Like, there's a lot of really smart people doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they are in many ways. There's less shielding, right? There's like a thinner lead shield between them and the game. Which is good because you can see the people in it more, but also we get more of like the angst and horrifying, like misery, and like an article goes up or someone in the Twitch chat is like, "This game looks dumb," and then we'll see it tomorrow, and then we're gonna like cry. I'm gonna eat like 3 hamburgers for breakfast.
Yeah. Like somebody the other day was in the comments was like, hype train's left. It's been too long. You guys fucked up. It's like, well, that hurts because we should probably just stop making the game, right? Because one person said, or a few people said that they're tired of waiting. But you, as a AAA developer, there's a lot of shielding between that because there's a PR person because you're working on like the unlock mechanic for a door or the little chest opening mini game instead of the entirety of making decisions for like all level design.
If a big team is run well, they still feel like connected to the game. So if they see a bad comment, it hurts them too. But for us, it's also like we have all the decision making power. So A, it's upsetting, and also B, you have to rethink all your decisions because you could if you wanted to. Like, should we change everything? Should we ship next week? Like,
that one person said that. Oh shit, man! We should just throw it in the train, drive it off a cliff.
Do you find you have to do that in your position? I'm assuming you're just God on this team. So do you get final word on things? Or you?
I'm not God on the team.
You're God.
No, I have a specific vision for the game, and I have things that I do and do not like. But it is much more about the team and how we feel about games and design because we are a better group when we think about something together and when we discuss something together and when we come to a consensus on something. So. Design by committee can work, I think, when there's smart people that like similar things or share the similar goals, not when there's dozens of people making the decisions. And there's certain things where like, I don't know what we should do here. How do we do it? And it's a discussion with everybody. I'm like, I feel good about having people that like each other and want to talk about stuff and are smart and are good at game design.
There's enough trust that like usually if we're arguing about something, we can come to a good consensus. And sometimes it's just everybody knows who knows the most about that thing.
Right.
You know, like ultimately, if something's up in the air, like we look to Alex's vision for it. But a lot of times it's like, oh, this question, we should just ask Bo because Bo's going to know the most about this like combat feel thing. Or we should just ask Casey about like why this makes sense in this situation.
Yeah. And there's very few things where I'm like, no, I have to veto that because then if the team doesn't agree with that, I feel bad. And it's like, well, nobody else feels good about that. So, well, that's not going to happen.
If something like that happens, does that directly impact the game? Like if one person is really vibing something and they really want to put it in there, but other people don't disagree, and can that controversy be poisonous to the overall development of the game?
There have not been any moments really like that. We usually come to some sort of consensus. Maybe it takes a day, maybe it takes a month to resolve that conversation, but at a certain point, there's give and take between when it's brought up and the final resolution of it. So it's never like, we're never fucking doing that. You're going to have a chip on your shoulder the entire project because you didn't let me put that health nugget in there. It's like, no, we'll find a way to resolve the conflict.
Hyperlight's really malleable. Like one of the best things and worst things about it is if you look at the Kickstarter and the original promise, it's not gimmick based. There's not like this one thing that it's really about. And so like, oh, if we miss that, it's everything's ruined and we have to be uncompromising about that. Like there is a promise of what the game feels like, but all those little decisions are totally flexible. So usually we come to a consensus and like I've given up my we there's an expression like kill your babies, which is kind of dark, but it's like
that's what we live by.
Yeah, you fall in love with stuff that you're working on and then you have to learn to let stuff go when it's not working. And so usually that's what happens. Is like by the time we figure it out, the person who loved it the most, like maybe that day they feel kind of gross about it, but they get like why it was removed.
Well, there was a weapon, the boomerang. Great, now Teddy's gonna leave.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just gonna put it back in.
There's been things, like there's this old weapon that we had, and we used it in a bunch of demos, and we fought about it for a while because it's like such a conflicting object. It's like, it shouldn't do this. It's too OP. And Teddy's like, no, not at all. It's like, no, it's fucking OP. It's destroying everything.
I think that one got resolved just by constraint. Like,
Right,
I
and
remember what I did after that is like we had the final or like a pre-final discussion. I was like, I'm gonna show you. Like, I'm gonna come in on Saturday. I'm gonna make it awesome. You guys are gonna see. And then I just never did that because I was too busy working on other stuff. And I was like, no, it's fine. Whatever. I'm over it. Like.
And by virtue of our constraints with time and everything else, like it's not in the game anymore.
Yeah, it was the right decision. It was the right decision.
So we've come to the Q&A portion of the show to wrap things up. Mr. Huber, I love you, but I'm going to kick your butt off the stage. We're going to bring in Mr. Ben Moore, who's been taking all of your questions. So he's not going to be taking any more questions, you guys, but I want to remind you that Mr. Daniel Bloodworth, if he is still in chat, is still giving away codes for Tower of Guns. We got a tower of codes, you could say, that we're going to be giving out for Tower of Guns. So please, if you would like, message Mr. Bloodworth and say, hey, I didn't get a code, and he should hopefully send one your way. I got to tell you, Brendan, I often remark on how, some games are, are over the shoulder that'll just, they'll just kind of like, just happen in the distance, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's a fun game, but I'm really going to focus on the guests, and really, ask good questions and really, respond to you and your answers. And this has got to be one of the most distracting games I have ever seen over the shoulder. I'm just constantly just like, what is happening right now? So yeah, I'm not sure if that's a compliment or not, but this is a very distracting game you created, sir. And before we move on to questions, what do you think so far? You look very busy typing away.
This is so, I'm so focused on this game right now.
Are you digging it so far? It looks like you're making progress. It looks like you're working through it.
I'm like coding right now or something. This is super bizarre to me.
So Mr. Ben Moore, you've been in the talking to the community throughout the show. You've been taking questions. Mm-hmm. Have people been on their best behavior? Did you get some good questions?
I did. Our community is always on their best behavior. I think we've got a good one. So
you're going portable. Some people bring up a big bulky laptop, but you're
it's the future,
you're
man.
smart. Yeah, it's
we
the
don't
future.
need that stuff.
You got your giant
iPhone.
Yeah, you got your
Well,
iPhone 6 there, so you got your big thing, your mini iPad. So hit us up. What's the question?
Yeah, first question. Regular mod of the chat, Rick and Robo. Once you're pretty far removed from Kickstarter at this point. The initial pitch and all that stuff. How do you, now that that sort of initial Kickstarter thing is done, how do you keep people interested in your game?
I do monthly updates. We put out GIFs because those are fun and easy to digest. It's like, yeah, a thing exploding. That's fun to look at. And we go to shows, and that's the best way to keep transparent and keep open and keep people interested. But also, we have to have downtime. We have to have time to really focus and not worry about if we're being super engaging. And the time will come to be more engaging later on.
Yeah, sometimes we go dark, like sometimes we just focused, and sometimes it's nice to come out because we want them to care as much as, like, it benefits us as much as it benefits them, right? Because then you're sitting there on their computer all day and you're like, somebody cares, and you can put a GIF up and people are like, this GIF is good, and you're like, thanks for liking my GIF.
Yeah.
And then you can work for another week without being sad. Yeah.
It's nice.
That really fascinates me. I mean, we're GameTrailers.com, so I'm really big on advertising, and really like what it takes, to maintain interest. And you bring up a good point where I think it's really good to, shut up for a little bit, and just realize like, well, we're really going to focus on the game. We don't necessarily need to be throwing stuff at you all the time. Like, we're really in that period between, we're really getting down to the nitty gritty of the game, and then we're going to, big launch trailer, and then we come out.
There's only so much you can do before you reach saturation also.
Right.
And you don't want to keep repeating stuff or like revealing too much.
Which is why we stopped playing your game 30 minutes in. We were like, that's enough.
Yeah,
let's move on to another game.
I'm over it.
All right, next question.
This one is from Ken Stan. He says, what is your sort of favorite Glitch City moment? Do you have anything that stands out?
Glitch City moment? That's a question.
That's a good question.
Brendan, was one spring to mind? Your favorite Glitch City moment?
The Sonic Boom is pretty good. Ants in the Freezer.
Yeah.
That's my favorite series.
Oh man, one of my personal favorites was it was Halloween. It was Halloween Day, which coincided with Project Workshop, which I previously said is like our group therapy. And so the question I brought for myself for my 10 minutes was, what should I do? I don't have a Halloween costume, and Halloween is tonight. So we just spent 10 minutes just people yelling like bad costume ideas at me. That was good for Hyperlight Drifter.
Have you had any cosplay so far as the main character? What is does he have a name? What's your main character?
No name. He's a no name. It's a dude.
Okay.
It's a fella.
The Drifter.
Yeah, he's the Drifter.
Yeah.
He's the main character. No, we've had some cosplay. We had one at PAX East that we'd hired to do, and there was a couple of others that came along, and some amazing ones that were for Halloween. There was a guy that got a tattoo of the logo.
That's
I
a
mean,
step
that's it.
higher on
No,
the
I'm saying
pyramid.
that's it. I mean, there's nothing.
There's name a baby after the
Right.
game.
Okay.
We're not there yet.
No,
but
no.
we're at tattoo.
We're not
Hyperlight
even
Drifter
text.
Phillips. Like.
Yeah. We did have there's a crummy band in Florida that named their album Hyperlight Drifter, and there's going to be something happening there legally, but you've made it when people
I mean, we
are
sued them, but
cloning.
we're very grateful for that. So somewhere in your offices, there's a box with the Hyperlight Drifter costume in it.
No.
That you're gonna break out.
She made it, and
kept it, right?
she keeps her own. She's
Oh,
like a
cool.
professional cosplayer. But there is a bunch of others like over the past year that I'm just like, whoa, that's crazy. Put so much effort into that. That's amazing.
Yeah, man. The fan art too.
Yeah, there's a lot
It's
of
really
it.
good.
And what are you in this crazy game? You're like a little robot. I saw some little robot legs walking around. Do you know, Brad? Have you seen yourself? I saw the shadow of little legs, and they kind of looked like a little robot that I saw in another part of in one of the trailers that you released.
Does the protagonist have a name in your game? I actually don't even know.
Poncho.
Oh.
Poncho?
Is Poncho.
Poncho's the protagonist.
Little Poncho.
Was not naming your character intentional for Hyperlight Drifter? Or was
Yeah,
it
we don't
just
have
like-
any words, no text in the
Right.
game, so we don't really get into any of the lore or naming of things. I did originally, and then we decided no words. So yeah, it's very intentional at this point.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a cool idea.
So if people name your character something that they like,
Poncho.
I'm gonna name it Poncho,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Next question.
Next question.
I like Poncho.
Good old RHD asks, do you have any video game role models? Excuse me.
Or role miles, whatever.
yeah, role
It's like
miles.
whatever you think is a better answer.
Developers that you
mine
tried to
too.
learn from.
developers that try and learn from.
Other than Brendan.
I mean, I learn a lot from Brendan. He's a crazy man. He's prolific. He's great at what he does. So, everybody at Glitch I kind of admire what we do.
Yeah,
what
Ben
everybody
Esposito
does.
was making Donut County, and he worked on Unfinished Swan before. He's has a lot of insights all the time. In terms of the old guard or bigger people, I don't know. I get torn sometimes about people like Kojima, because he makes weird decisions, and I actually I don't think I've ever played any of his games to completion.
No, never.
But he has a voice, right? I was talking about that earlier. He just makes these decisions. No, this is what I want in my game. Like the TV intro in MGS4, or there's a document on the internet. I'm not going to rant about this. There's a document you can find, which is the Metal Gear Solid 2 Master Plan, I think is what it's called, which is the book he made that was the secret plan for this game. And one of the things in there is what if we just called it Metal Gear Solid 3? People will be like, what happened to Metal Gear Solid 2? I love that.
He loves fucking with people, and it's great. I can appreciate that, even though I don't necessarily love his games as much as everybody else.
Yeah. And
The old Japanese guard. There's amazing developers there. Everybody at Nintendo is incredible. But
Well, both these games that we're seeing today seem like games that mess with you. I mean, this obviously more than Hyperlight Drifter, but I mean, you even said you don't have any text in your game, and that can be a wall that you have to climb over, just kind of absorbing the game, absorbing the world just by running around and smashing stuff.
paying attention, taking some time to observe. It's important in games.
There's definitely times where there'll be a piece of difficulty that you can read as the game designer put that in there. That happens in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
right?
That's
it's
why they're
something kills
great.
you and you're I remember at the beginning of Dark Souls is the boulder that falls down and
Yeah.
it's definitely gonna kill you, and it's just they're welcome to the game, drop the mic.
Yeah,
Bitches.
Yeah.
That's why actually they've changed it since, but I really liked the loading screen of Bloodborne before they changed it. Just was the
Oh,
title,
I
and that always
hated
cracked
that
me up.
thing.
Well, it cracked me up because you die and then you see it, and so I liked dying a horrible death, and then they're like Bloodborne.
Bloodborne, motherfucker.
Hey,
There it is.
yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, big middle finger, white, that burns into your screen.
That's what it should have been
Yeah.
a big bird right behind that. More questions.
More questions. This is from this is the pronunciation I'm going to go with. Blood E9. What helps you when you sort of feel stuck as you're developing your game? What helps you get out of it? What do you turn to?
Other video games.
Other video games? I wondered if there were any secret vices that you were going to reveal.
All the hardcore drugs that I do. No, same as anybody else. Just relax and don't think about it too much. Try and watch a movie or a bad TV show. Bad TV shows are great for that because you can zone out on trashy stuff. So
I go dancing. I go to the club. I'm not kidding.
That's great.
Yeah, man. Go a place where people are there to dance.
Yeah.
Do you think people wouldn't, if you said I go to dance, people would be like, no, you're just kidding?
No,
you
I've
immediately had to set that up and being like, I'm serious about this.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I'm weird enough. People would be like, yeah, probably does.
but dancing's not weird at all.
Oh, yeah,
That's pretty
true.
normalized.
I guess so.
What's a good bad TV show if people need a nice stress reliever right now?
Any of the Gordon Ramsay stuff is fun. Hell's Kitchen is really bad because it's like the hard cuts are so fast and there's so many of them and it's the worst editing. But it's still there's something attractive about it. There's something that keeps you in there, even though it's like these are the worst people. And Gordon Ramsay's just putting on a total show because he's a sweet man and he's an amazing cook. But then he's like putting on this angry British man, yells at Americans, and it's like, that's satisfying. I want to watch this.
There's probably like tons of moments or like things that are in Hyperlight Drifter that like came up to life because Alex was sitting there like, this show sucks. I have a great idea. Like that's why I go dancing, right? Because you can't think about other stuff. You're just too busy thinking about this dumb thing, and then your brain can figure out all the shit that you couldn't deal with, like when you get stuck.
Showers also help for that too.
Yeah, people say shower.
There's a whole subreddit for shower thoughts, but it's a great place to have thoughts about things. You're isolated and there's warm water and it's comfortable and you can pee in the shower if you want. It's like, this is great. I can think about everything and anything.
So
you have a bagel in there.
Yeah, so now that we have smartphones, you could potentially go dancing and watch a terrible TV show at the same time.
And take a shower with a waterproof
maybe
phone.
take a shower. Yeah,
shower clubs.
Dance in the shower while watching Gordon Ramsay.
It is pool party season in Vegas right now. It's about to start up, so you can literally
start shower club at Glitch.
Oh my god. Next question.
Next one is from Seraphim Bahamut 79. He says, yeah, that's an intense name. He says, what other things besides games kind of inspire Hyperlight Drifter?
Ooh.
So you, man. Well, sort of.
What other things? Life. I don't know. I have a lot of... Most of the story and the reason why I'm making it is because of my own health problems. So those trials and tribulations have inspired me to keep going with it and inspired the story in a very, very impactful and personal way. So, yeah.
Do you feel that that's kind of worked both ways? That like it's kind of helped you cathartically go through that like.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that I'm so laser focused on, and it helps me escape from some of those problems too. To be like, I can do this thing. I have full control over it, or as much control as I possibly can, even though I have no control over my body and the terrible things it's doing. So it's such a like stark relief in a lot of ways, and a great way to invest my time rather than being a zombie on a couch or something.
Have you ever met a fan at an event that's maybe shared that thing? That's like, I've also had health issues, or maybe maybe I've gleaned that from the game.
Now there is a guy that I started playing a little bit of Destiny with, and he has the same congenital heart condition as I do. So it was really interesting to talk to him about that stuff, and I wouldn't have met him or talked to him otherwise if I didn't know him through the game. So it's intense, and there's been a lot of messages early on of people sharing their stories. They're really terrible things that are happening to them. I don't even know them, perfect strangers, and giving this like really deep and personal story, and it's like, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that with me, or like having the courage to do that, because I know that stuff is hard to do.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you, Seraphim, for having a real moment for once on GT Live.
Yeah.
Give me some other questions.
Okay. Well,
you pulled that one from memory. Like you're ready. Like you got these prepped. You don't even look at.
Yeah,
the phone.
I'm trying not to look at the phone as little as possible. I have a personal question. Is that okay? Is that allowed?
That's fine. You're not getting a code though.
Okay, not getting. I already reviewed the game. Do you ever, when you're working on something, and you kind of have a vision for it, do you ever get ideas that you get really attached to, but maybe don't necessarily fit the game?
Yeah, all the time. That just goes into another game.
Okay. So do you have like a bunch of different ideas for games that you kind of like immediately want to go into after Hyperlight, or?
I think any creative process, but particularly with games, and maybe Teddy can speak to this too, like I think that happens naturally during development. Like, I want to do this in a game, and it doesn't fit this game, so maybe for a different project. And I think that's true for any creative medium that you have. Like, I'm focused on this song, it's like great riff, but it's like it doesn't quite fit the lyrics here, so I'm going to save that for something else.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff happens all the time.
Yeah, you plant. I feel like you plant all those seeds, and then some of those are really small. Some of those are like, oh, I'm going to make that thing this weekend. I'm going to make that Sonic game.
Yeah.
But some of them are like you plant it and then you step away from it and then you keep coming back to it, and if you're still psyched about it, by the time you finish what you're working on, then it's worth working on.
Yeah.
And everything else you should just throw in the garbage.
We had like a robot village that we wanted to put in the game, and there might be something like a robot monks, monastic robots that have moved away from the murderous robots into their own monastery in the north, and it's changed and evolved over time, and it might even make it into the game, and so maybe that's for something else because it's still a great idea that I really like. And I know Teddy's quitting the team if it doesn't go on the game. So
I always have a pin in one thing that's like, I will quit if we don't put this in. And it keeps like coming out and going into other time. Fine, okay, I don't want to quit. I like this team.
Hoverboards.
Well, when the game finally comes out, and if it's not in there, you're going to have these poor fans that are, watching GT Live that are just like, I can't beat the game yet because there's monk robots somewhere. I got to find them.
If people buy it, then we have money, and then we can make the B-sides. It's just all the stuff that we shouldn't have put in the game. We just put it in one other game.
Just socket it in.
Snowboarding, robot, confetti, art.
Maybe there'll be
time.
like a junk room where it's just a static shot of all the things, the graveyard of dead ideas that never made it in. It's just a drawing of all the robot monks.
It would
and
be all these like
skateboards.
unanimated creatures too, just like
just on a skateboard, half frozen.
That's actually a great idea, and it doesn't happen very often in games. It happens in everything else. You don't get B-sides, you don't get director's cuts a lot of times because that's always presented as DLC, and so you don't know if it was just kind of shelved ideas or not. But I would like a better distinction. I think that'd be cool.
That's why I loved seeing stuff like the old Super Mario World concept shots that they had in the old Nintendo Powers, where it's like, this is the first version, we're giving you a sneak peek, or even Ocarina of Time that had a bunch of those really old test shots and prototypes. Like, fuck, man, that's super interesting. I want to see what that was like.
The more human that video game development gets, the more people get exposed to developers, and like this is another thing that indie is good for because we can speak freely about the game whenever we want, so we can really connect with people. Like the more people can understand where we're coming from, I feel like the easier it is to do stuff like that. To be like, hey, here's a room you can go into the game. That's all the stuff we deleted or whatever. It might crash the game, like FYI, but we think it's funny, so caveat.
I just want to point out that there's some mumbling going on over on the couch. Brendan and Brad are having a brief little discussion there. I'm just curious who instigated that. Brad, did you seek help, or Brendan, were you just like in pain and you're like, okay, here's what you have to do?
Yeah, this is like, I've never played anything like this. I'm definitely out of my element right here.
Is that what you look for, Brendan? Is, quote, I've never played anything like this?
Oh yeah, that's why I make games. That's for sure.
Whereas you guys kind of, I imagine, want some kind of familiarity. You want people to go into Hyperlight and they're like, oh yeah, okay, I've played a game like this before.
There's grounding and rules and familiar things that we follow that we love about games or love about certain games that we pull over, but we also want it to be an experience. It's not like other games. It's unique. You want to make an original thing. You don't want to be like some of those other developers that just steal things.
Yeah. Well, like one of the many things that was a benefit of having the Kickstarter is that there was a fan base from the beginning. So I know, at least for me and like for all of us, that like one of the things that matters most to me is this isn't just a game that lots of people play. Like it's got to mean something to somebody. Like it can't just be, oh, we got a good Metacritic, or like it sold well. That would be awesome. But also like someone's got to remember one thing from it that then like if they're a kid like and they're making a game in 10 years, they'll be like, oh, like this thing that I made was inspired by that one thing in Hyperlight Drifter. That would be cool.
Fun is great, but for me it's about the meaning of the game, and it's about pulling something away from the experience that you can personalize, that can be your own, and that's the most important thing for me.
Like crashing the game, that's very personal.
So
Yeah.
personal.
Oh,
No, I mean, like,
Goofy stuff like that is great though, and you remember it. And
That didn't happen like 10 years ago at like an E3. Like if someone went and they like played the game and it crashed, like they would like pull a lever and that person would go through a hatch and be like,
Yeah.
don't tell anyone. They'd interrogate them. It'd be like Disneyland when someone breaks the law. And now it's like everyone can laugh about it because we're all humans.
One more question to
One
wrap
more
things
question.
up. What do you got?
This is from Tongue Surgery. What would you
Whoa,
say?
that's a great name.
Always throwing out
it
good
is.
questions. Tongue surgery is frequently mentioned on GT Live.
I think a lot of people out there are interested in making games, but coding is very intimidating. What would you say to somebody that wants to make games but has no idea how to code?
Start.
You learn.
No, I mean, that's like hard to say, right? It's funny. I studied programming in college a little bit and then forgot all of it. So by the time I actually was like really making games, I effectively was self-taught. One of the cool things you can do is like find an example. So find a tool. Don't obsess over which one. Like if you want to make a 3D game, pick Unreal or Unity. Don't think about it too much. Just pick one. If you want to make a 2D game, like we love Game Maker. And then find a demo or like a tutorial because there's stuff built and you don't have to code from scratch. The easiest way to learn how to program is to look at someone else's work and like learn how to tweak it a little bit. Like, oh, make the character faster or slower, and then you can kind of expand your understanding until you can write your own stuff from zero.
It's much the same with art too. And again, like any creative process, there's a lot of similarities, and it's like just take your favorite examples and start disassembling that and working backwards and copy stuff to start. Don't release things that you've
Don't
copied
sell it, yeah.
Yeah, don't sell, but like that's a great way. Just like try and copy something that you really love. Like, can I replicate this? Can I make this drawing? Like when I was a kid, I drew Ninja Turtles off of my action figures, trying to make them perfectly accurate. It's like my mom helped me make those because I wasn't good enough. It's like, get a friend to help you perfectly replicate something.
And get your friend to play it. Like,
Yeah.
if you have something that you've made, like bring it to like your friend's house if you guys are hanging out. Be like, hey, play this thing, and then you get to see people play your game, which is one of the most rewarding things that it keeps you going.
Yeah.
Where do you reach a point, or when did you reach a point where you're like, I think I'm good enough to show this to people?
Never.
Yeah. It's kind of like I have to show this to people,
Yeah.
or I won't have any money, and then I won't be able to make it anymore.
It's like out of necessity more than anything else.
I feel like a smaller part of that, like I have an arc for Hyperlight Drifter because we started making that game and I joined during the Kickstarter, and then like a few weeks later we were showing it to people, or I was like at Minecon showing it to people, and they were like, this game's awesome, I love it. And I was like, no, not me, man, don't talk to me, I suck. Like these guys made it, I was just here, I don't know. And now I've like come to feel like, okay, yeah, like we're making a good game, and like I was a part of that, of the like 5 people or 8 people in the expanded team that made this thing.
Yeah.
Excellent questions, everybody. I love it. And you found a couple people that are deserving of the Pose of Eternity codes.
I got 2 names picked out for
Nice.
Pose of Eternity.
Thank you guys so much always for asking really awesome questions. That is the show. I want to wrap things up by talking about, if you don't mind, talking about GameTrailers.com a little bit and some cool stuff that you can check out on Game Trailers this week. As, of course, we talked about, we got the top 10 robots this Friday. The Witcher 3 review went up yesterday, and Mr. Daniel Bloodworth spent over 100 hours in this massive game. We gave it a really good score. It's a really good game. You can expect some more awesome coverage of The Witcher 3 next week, but the review is up. You should definitely check it out. And Ladies in the Lobby is a brand new show that is produced by Elise Willems. She brought in a bunch of her funny, fantastic female friends that came in and talked about a bunch of stuff that they like in games. And the first episode went up. You can expect new episodes every Monday. We're going to have 5 more episodes coming up in the next 5 weeks. So I invite you to go check that out. You can check it up on our website and on our YouTube channel. Of course, you got new episodes of Huber Hyde, Final Bossman, Tabletop, and GT Time. What happened to Tabletop? As long as I got you on the table here.
You picked a good week to ask that question.
Uh-oh.
The episode that we just shot is my favorite episode. that we've
Ever?
Yeah. I think we had I think everybody had a really good chemistry with one another. I think it was really funny. I think everybody was at the top of their game in terms of role playing. I was just really fun. I had a great time, and so I'm looking forward to the reaction.
Tabletop fans, you guys? You play some Tabletop?
yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Brendan, Tabletop? All right, Tabletop love.
We've been playing D&D at Glitch City, and Brendan's character is a fungus mushroom man named Fungo.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's
He's
really
a
good.
well-dressed tailor man.
Yes, I'm a sailor and a fashionista in D&D.
Sailor and Taylor.
You're also a fashionista in real life. I mean, come on.
No.
You're the best looking. You're the best dressed. You're the best looking and the best dressed man in the building. I mean, we know that. We've already established that before the show started. Mandatory update, of course. We'll have a new episode this weekend. Bonus round. We'll be talking about Let's Plays. Which is a weird little phenomenon that's happened in video games. I'm kind of curious to see what the panel's got to say about that. We got tons of Just Plays coming up. Me and Kyle Bossman sat down and talked about Puzzle and Dragons. Puzzle and Dragons. One puzzle, many dragons. That is now available on 3DS, and Nintendo put Mario characters in it, so you can go pick up that. That is based on a mobile game. Wolfenstein Old Blood, I sat down with Mr. Michael Huber, who finished the game, and Mr. Brad Ellis, who is working his way through Quadrilateral Cowboy right now. We talked about that awesome expansion that just came out. Also talked about Black Mesa. I mean, talk about Weird Design Stories, which is now available on Steam Early Access. And many other Just Plays are coming. We shot a bunch today. They're going to be rolling out in the next couple weeks. Some awesome streams coming up. Another really cool independent game, Oxenfree, is coming in tomorrow to demo their game, which I'm really curious to check that game out and see how it works. Looks like a really interesting story, kind of some teen angst with supernatural monsters and stuff like that. Really curious to see how the pace of that game rolls out. And very far from an independent game, one of the best franchise games of all time, GoldenEye 007, we will be streaming on Friday. We do every now and then we do a full playthrough Friday, so we'll be going through the single player campaign all the way through GoldenEye 007. Mr. Michael Huber will be kicking that off, and the moment he dies, I will be wresting the controller away from his hands.
Such a good soundtrack on that game.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's just like, you go through that movie and like they recreated all of those levels.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nuts. That game is one of the best 64 games and one of the best shooters of all time. And I invite you guys to join us this Saturday for a very special event. We will be participating in Operation Supply Drop's 8-Bit Salute, which is a charity that will hopefully bring in some cash from us for our team, and we'll be donating games for our armed forces so they can play video games overseas, so they can enjoy themselves, because we're all indebted to them. So we will be starting at 10 a.m. and at least going until 8 p.m., possibly longer. Mr. Ben Moore will be doing that. I will be doing that. Andrea Renee will be doing that. Kyle Bossman, Elise Willems. If you go to our schedule below the video player that you're looking at right now, you can see our schedule on our Twitch page, twitch.tv/GameTrailers, and you can see who's playing what. That might be evolving throughout the week as we, kind of figure out who's going to be playing at what time. But some of us will be playing from home, which will be a change for Game Trailer streams. You'll be seeing at least what my garage looks like. I'm going to be playing in my pajamas, playing Disney Infinity for 2 hours. So I invite you to check that out. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can subscribe to us on this page, and you can also subscribe on our 2 YouTube channels, Game Trailers and GT Reviews. You can go to GameTrailers.com. We got a website. You can watch trailers there along with all of our shows. Thank you, Teddy. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Brendan, for coming and showing our games. Thank you, guys. It's, as you mentioned, it's kind of scary, showing up, especially with PC games. It's if you have like a disc or something of a game that you launched, you just come in, plug in the disc, and you do it. But thank you so much for coming in and showing us your games and showing us, the latest versions of it. No crashes today.
No crashes.
You made it. Yes. You made it all the way through. And thank you, Brad Ellis, for playing the game. And thank you, Ben Moore, and thank you, chat, for asking really awesome questions. Thank you, Danny Bloodworth, for passing out. I'm curious how many codes we got through. What's the limit of how many codes we can give out in one episode of GT Live? Again, thank you guys so much for showing up. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday.